My husband brought his secret wife to our 10th anniversary dinner, smiling like a man who thought he controlled everything. The moment she walked through that door and saw who was sitting at that table, he realized the dinner was never for me. It was for him. I stood up in front of everyone and said, "I've waited 6 months for this moment. My name is Clara Simmons. I want to tell you about the night I sat across from my husband Daniel at the most expensive restaurant in the city, watching him walk through the door holding another woman's hand. Our 10th wedding anniversary dinner. A reservation I made 3 months in advance. A red dress I bought specifically for that night. A plan I had been building quietly, carefully, patiently for 6 months. But I need to start from the beginning. Because none of it makes sense unless you understand who Daniel was to me and who I thought I was to him. Daniel and I met when I was 23-year-old and he was 27-year-old. He was charming in the way that certain men are charming, the kind that makes you feel like the only person in a crowded room. He remembered small things, the name of my childhood dog, the way I took my coffee, the anniversary of my mother's passing. He was thoughtful and warm, and I fell in love with him completely, the way only young women who have never been truly hurt can fall in love. We built a life together. A home in a quiet suburb of Atlanta, 2 cars, a joint account, shared dreams about children we kept saying we would have next year. I turned down a promotion at my company to support his business when it was struggling. I cooked, I planned, I managed our home with the same care I gave everything I loved. For 10 years, I was a faithful, devoted wife. And for at least 4 of those years, Daniel had been living a second life. It started with a receipt. I found it in the pocket of his gray jacket when I sent it to the dry cleaner in March. A hotel receipt. 2 nights. A suite in downtown Houston. The dates matched a business trip he had taken that same week. I remembered that trip clearly because I had called him every single evening and he had answered every time, his voice relaxed and familiar, telling me about long meetings and room service and how much he missed me. I stood in my bedroom holding that receipt for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't call him. I took a photograph of the receipt with my phone, folded it exactly as I had found it, and placed it back in the pocket. Then I sat down on the edge of our bed, the bed we had shared for 10 years, and I made a decision. I was not going to confront him with one receipt. One receipt could be explained away. One receipt could become an argument that he would win simply by denying it loudly enough. I had watched enough women destroyed by confronting men too early, before they had anything solid in their hands. I was going to be patient. I was going to find out everything. And then I was going to decide what to do with what I found. I hired a private investigator named Mr. Harris 2 weeks later. He was a quiet, unremarkable man who charged me $3,500 and asked very few questions. He told me he would need 3 weeks. He needed 2. The folder he delivered to me on a Tuesday afternoon contained 52 pages. Her name was Sandra Collins, 31. She was a real estate agent based in Houston. She was beautiful in the effortless way that makes other women feel invisible. She and Daniel had been together for 4 years, which meant he had started that relationship on the night of our 6th wedding anniversary, a night I remembered because he had surprised me with roses and a dinner reservation and told me he loved me more than anything in the world. Sandra had a child, a boy named Mason, 3 years old, with Daniel's exact nose and Daniel's exact wide dark eyes. My husband had a son I had never been told about. I sat in my car in the parking lot outside Mr. Harris's office and I read that folder 3 times from beginning to end. Then I put it on the passenger seat and I stared out of the windshield at nothing for a very long time. The grief that moved through me in that parking lot was unlike anything I had ever felt. It was not loud. It did not make me scream or shake. It was quiet and total, like water filling a room slowly, and I understood in those silent minutes that the marriage I thought I had never existed. The man I had loved and trusted and sacrificed for had been performing a role while living a completely separate life, and I had believed every single moment of his performance. I allowed myself to feel all of it in that parking lot. Every bit of it. Then I wiped my face, started the engine, drove home, walked inside, kissed Daniel on the cheek, and asked him what he wanted for dinner. Because I had decided something sitting in that car. I was not going to beg. I was not going to break down in front of him. I was not going to give Daniel the satisfaction of watching me fall apart, of seeing me reduced to the kind of woman who pleads and weeps and asks why. He did not deserve my tears. He did not deserve any reaction from me that he had not already earned through months of careful, deliberate planning on my part. I spent the next 6 months preparing. I met with a divorce attorney named Margaret Caldwell the following week. She was sharp and calm, and she helped me understand exactly what I was entitled to and exactly how to protect it. Over the following months, I quietly moved every joint asset I legally could into a separate account. I documented everything in Mr. Harris's folder, and had it notarized. I gathered bank statements, transfer records, evidence of the money Daniel had been quietly moving from our joint account every month. Money I now understood had been paying Sandra's rent and covering expenses for a child he had hidden from me. I contacted Daniel's company's HR department. Anonymously, I submitted evidence of company funds he had been diverting through a vendor account he controlled. I was specific. I was thorough. I included dates, amounts, and transaction references. Then I began planning the dinner. Our 10th anniversary fell on a Saturday in October. I booked a private dining room at the finest restaurant in Buckhead 3 months in advance. I sent personal invitations to everyone who mattered in Daniel's life: his mother Patricia, his brother Kevin, his 2 closest friends Rob and Jason, 3 of his senior colleagues, and our mutual friends who had attended our wedding. I told each of them it was a surprise anniversary celebration and asked them to keep it between us. Then I found Sandra's contact details in Mr. Harris's file, and I sent her a separate invitation. A formal, beautifully printed card with the restaurant name, the date, the time, and Daniel's full name. I told her that Daniel wanted her to finally meet the important people in his life, that he felt it was time, that he was ready. I did not sign my name. I signed it as Daniel. Then I waited. On the evening of our anniversary, I arrived at the restaurant 40 minutes early. I wore the red dress Daniel always said was his favorite. I ordered a bottle of wine and I sat at the head of the long table in that private room and I greeted every person as they arrived. Patricia, who hugged me warmly and told me I looked beautiful. Kevin, who said Daniel was the luckiest man alive. Rob and Jason, who were loud and cheerful and full of jokes about 10 years feeling like 10 days when you married the right person. The room was full and warm and bright with candles, and I sat at the center of it feeling the strangest calm I had ever felt in my life. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Mr. Harris, who I had asked to watch the entrance. They just walked in. I picked up my wine glass. I straightened my back. I watched the door. Daniel walked in first. He was smiling the easy smile of a man who believed he was in complete control of his evening. Then he stepped aside to let the woman behind him enter, and Sandra walked in beside him, dressed in a deep green gown, beautiful and confident, holding his arm with the ease of a woman who had been told she was finally being brought into the light. The room went silent in the way rooms go silent when everyone understands simultaneously that something is very wrong. I watched Daniel's face in the seconds that followed. Confusion first. Why were all these people here? Then recognition. These were his people, his mother, his brother, his friends. Then his eyes found mine across the table, and I watched the color leave his face completely as the full weight of what I had built came down on him all at once. Sandra looked around the table slowly. She looked at Daniel. She looked at the faces staring back at her. Then she looked at me. I stood up. I smoothed my dress. I picked up my wine glass and I spoke clearly and calmly into the silence. Daniel, I'm so glad you brought her tonight. It saves me the introduction. My name is Clara. I am Daniel's wife of 10 years. And I want Sandra to know that I hold nothing against her, because I have seen the evidence and I know that she too was lied to. I set my eyes on Daniel then. Everyone at this table received an email this morning from my attorney containing the divorce filing and the financial evidence I submitted to your company last week. I have also ensured that the relevant documents have been delivered to Sandra, so she understands the full picture of the man she has been trusting. The room was absolutely silent. I have nothing more to say to you, Daniel. Margaret Caldwell will handle everything from here. I picked up my bag. I looked at Patricia, who had tears running down her face, and I touched her hand gently because she had always been kind to me and none of this was her fault. Then I walked across that room and through that door and out into the cool October night without looking back once. Daniel lost his position at his company 6 weeks later following the internal investigation. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. I kept the house, a significant portion of our joint assets, and every piece of my dignity. The last thing I heard through a mutual friend was that Sandra had left Daniel 2 months after that night when she discovered there was a third woman, someone in Dallas he had been seeing for over a year. I do not feel sorry for Daniel. I do not feel angry anymore either. What I feel every morning when I wake up in my house and make my coffee exactly the way I like it is free. Some men confuse a good woman's patience for ignorance. They forget that the same woman who loved them quietly is capable of planning precisely. I planned, and I chose my moment, and I walked out on my own terms. That is the only revenge worth having. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. Thank you.